Don't answer them, Chidi warned, though he wasn't sure why. Some instinct told him that acknowledging the voices was dangerous. But there are children, Amara insisted. They need us. They're calling for us. The voices had been coming every night for a week now. Kelechi and Kosisachukwu calling from the garden below. Their words cutting through the darkness like knives through his heart. But something about those voices, something beyond the impossibility of hearing his dead children speak, made every nerve in his body scream danger. 2 weeks earlier, the windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm against the afternoon rain as Chidi gripped the steering wheel tighter. 6 months. 6 months since that phone call from the school asking where he was. 6 months since he'd had to identify 2 small bodies at the morgue. 6 months since his world collapsed because he forgot to pick up his children. "The car is making that sound again," Amara said quietly, her first words in hours. She sat pressed against the passenger door, as far from him as possible, staring out at the endless stretch of rural road. Between them, the empty space felt like an ocean. Chidi glanced at the temperature gauge. The needle was climbing dangerously high. "We'll need to find somewhere to stop." Kelechi and Kosisochukwu's car seats still occupied the back seat, a silent accusation that neither of them could bear to remove. Amara had covered them with a wrapper months ago, but the outline of the seats was still visible, like small graves under a burial shroud. The engine gave a final, shuddering gasp as they coasted into a small village. A weathered sign read, "Welcome to Umuagwo, population 847. The main street was nothing more than red earth, lined with a few shops, a small church, and scattered compounds surrounded by palm trees. "There," Amara pointed to a mechanic's shed with a hand-painted sign. A middle-aged man in oil-stained overalls waved them over. As Chidi popped the hood, revealing billowing steam, a woman approached them. She was perhaps 50, with kind eyes and the sort of maternal presence that immediately put people at ease. She wore a bright Ankara wrapper and head wrap, and her smile was warm despite the strangers before her. "Nundo, sorry about your car," she said, genuine concern in her voice. "I'm Mama Ifeoma. I lead the women's group here in Umuagwo." Her eyes took in their expensive Lagos clothes, their hollow expressions, and lingered on the covered car seats in the back. "You're far from home." Chidi nodded, not trusting his voice. The woman's kindness was overwhelming after months of pitying stares and whispered conversations. "We're just traveling," Amara managed, looking for somewhere quiet. Mama Ifeoma's expression softened further. "Running from pain, eh? I understand. Sometimes the heart needs distance to heal." She paused, studying their faces. "Are you looking for somewhere to stay? To rest?" "Maybe," Chidi said. "We hadn't really planned." "I might know exactly what you need," Mama Ifeoma said, her eyes lighting up. "There's a beautiful house at the edge of town, very peaceful, very private. Perfect for a couple who needs time away from the world to mend their hearts." The house stood like something from a dream. 2 stories of cream-colored walls rose from a garden bursting with hibiscus and frangipani. Palm trees swayed gently around the property, and an old wooden swing hung from a massive mango tree in the front yard. It was isolated enough for privacy, but not so remote as to feel abandoned. "The owners live in America now," Mama Ifeoma explained as she led them up the front steps. "They just want good people taking care of it. The rent is very reasonable, 20,000 naira a month." Chidi and Amara exchanged glances. In Lagos, they'd paid 10 times that for half the space. The interior was even more impressive. Polished terrazzo floors, comfortable furniture, a kitchen with modern appliances. Everything was spotlessly clean, as if it had been waiting just for them. "The bedroom upstairs has a lovely view of the garden," Mama Ifeoma said, leading them up wooden stairs that didn't even creak. "Very peaceful. You'll sleep well here." The master bedroom was spacious, with windows that overlooked the garden and the swing set below. Sunlight streamed through white curtains, making everything glow softly. "We'll take it," Amara said suddenly. It was the first time she'd shown interest in anything since the accident. Chidi pulled out his wallet. First month in advance? That would be perfect. Mama Ifeoma smiled, accepting the money. I live just down the road. The compound with the blue gate. If you need anything at all, just come find me. She paused at the front door. This place has a way of helping people heal. I think you'll find the peace you're looking for here. As her car disappeared down the dusty road, Chidi and Amara stood in their new temporary home, feeling something they hadn't experienced in months: hope. Both voices now overlapping, his children calling for him just as they must have called when that car came speeding toward them, when they were alone and afraid because their father had forgotten to pick them up. Chidi squeezed his eyes shut. It's not real, he whispered. They're gone. They're gone. When he opened his eyes, the garden was silent again. But sleep didn't come for the rest of the night. You look terrible, Amara said over breakfast. Bad dreams? Chidi considered telling her about the voices, but she looked more rested than she had in months. The dark circles under her eyes were fading, and she'd actually smiled when she saw the flowers he'd picked for the kitchen table. Just adjusting to the new place, he lied. They settled into a routine quickly. Chidi would wake early and tend the garden, finding solace in the simple act of watering plants and pulling weeds. Amara spent hours on the swing, reading, or simply staring into the distance. For the first time since the accident, they were sleeping through the night. The first 3 days felt like a miracle. The silence of the village was a balm to their wounded souls. No car horns, no shouting neighbors, no constant reminders of their loss. Here, surrounded by palm trees and the gentle sounds of village life, they began to remember what peace felt like. On the second day, they took a walk through the village together, hand in hand for the first time since the funeral. Children played football in the dust, their laughter floating on the evening air, and instead of the usual stab of pain, Chidi and Amara found themselves smiling softly. It doesn't hurt as much here, Amara admitted quietly as they watched the children play. No, Chidi agreed. It doesn't. By the third evening, as they sat on their front steps sharing a bottle of palm wine from the local palm wine tapper, Amara said, "Do you think we can really heal here?" Chidi looked at his wife, really looked at her. The deep lines of grief around her eyes had begun to soften. She'd eaten full meals for 3 days straight. She'd even hummed while cooking earlier. I hope so. I want us to try. I've been thinking about what the counselor said. About forgiveness. The word hung in the air between them, but for once it didn't feel like a weapon. Chidi's hand found hers. I'm not ready yet, she said quickly, but maybe someday I can forgive you for not being there, and maybe you can forgive yourself. It was the closest they'd come to addressing the elephant in their marriage, his guilt, her resentment, the way blame had poisoned everything between them. That night they went to bed in the same room for the first time in months. Chidi lay awake listening to Amara's gentle breathing, thinking that perhaps they really could rebuild what they'd lost. Perhaps this place really could give them back their marriage, their future, their hope. He was still thinking these hopeful thoughts when, at 12:47 a.m. on their fourth night, he heard the first voice. Papa? Chidi's eyes snapped open. The voice was faint, seeming to come from the garden below. A child's voice, soft and questioning. Papa, where are you? Ice flooded Chidi's veins. The voice was unmistakable. It was Kelechi, his son, calling for him with the same tone he'd used when he was scared or lost. Chidi slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake Amara. He crept to the window and peered down into the moonlit garden. Nothing. Just shadows dancing in the breeze, and the empty swing moving slightly back and forth. Papa, we can't find you. This time, it was Kosasochukwu's voice, his daughter, and it seemed to come from directly below their window. Chidi's hands shook as he gripped the windowsill. We're scared, Papa. It's dark here. That afternoon, while exploring the house more thoroughly, Amara called out from the upstairs closet, Chidi, come look at this. He found her kneeling on the closet floor, surrounded by items she'd pulled from the back corners. Children's toys, a wooden car, a doll with braided hair, building blocks. baby clothes in various sizes, and photographs. Lots of photographs. These were hidden behind some boxes, Amara said, holding up a family portrait. It showed a young couple with a toddler, all smiling happily. But there were more photos of the same family, and in each successive picture, the parents looked progressively more haggard. Dark circles under their eyes, forced smiles, the haunted look Chidi recognized from his own mirror. "Look at this one," Amara whispered, showing him another family. Different faces, but the same progression. Joy turning to exhaustion, hope fading into something that looked like terror. There were 6 different families represented in the photographs. All couples, all with young children, all showing the same disturbing pattern. "What happened to them?" Amara asked. Before Chidi could answer, they heard it. Children laughing in the garden below. They rushed to the window. 2 small figures were playing on the swing set, a boy and a girl who looked exactly like Kelechi and Kosisachukwu. The same height, the same hair, even the same clothes they'd been wearing the day they died. "Oh my God," Amara breathed. "Chidi, do you see them?" The children looked up at the window and waved, their faces bright with joy. "Mama, Papa," they called. "Come play with us." Amara was already running for the stairs. Chidi caught her arm. "Wait, something's not right." "Those are our children." Amara struggled against his grip. "They're calling for us." By the time they made it to the garden, it was empty. The swing moved gently in the breeze, and small wet footprints led away from the swing set in a circle around the house, but there were no children. "They were here," Amara insisted, kneeling to touch the footprints. "I saw them. You saw them too." Chidi stared at the prints. They were exactly the size of his children's feet. That night, the voices came earlier and stayed longer. "Papa, why didn't you come get us from school?" Chidi sat up in bed, his heart hammering. Amara was still asleep beside him, but her face was troubled even in her dreams. "Papa, we waited and waited for you. We had to walk home by ourselves. We were scared, Papa. The car came so fast. We called for you, but you weren't there." Each word was a knife twisting in Chidi's chest. He stumbled to the window, and there they were again, Kelechi and Kosisachukwu standing in the garden, looking up at him with faces full of hurt and confusion. "Why didn't you save us, Papa?" Kelechi asked. "Don't you love us anymore?" Kosisachukwu added. "I'm sorry," Chidi whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry. I forgot. I was working and I forgot. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." "If you're sorry," Kelechi said, "why won't you come play with us?" "We've been waiting so long," Kosisachukwu added. "We're lonely here." Chidi's hand moved toward the window latch. All he had to do was open it, climb down, go to his children, hold them again, tell them properly how sorry he was. A hand touched his shoulder. "Chidi?" Amara was awake, staring at him with concern. "What are you doing?" He turned back to the window. The garden was empty. I thought I heard something." Amara joined him at the window. "I've been hearing them too," she admitted quietly. "The children. Our children." They held each other as the night wind whispered through the trees, and neither of them mentioned the small wet footprints that appeared around their house every morning like a nightly dance of the dead. The voices grew bolder as the days passed. They came during daylight hours now, calling from empty rooms, echoing through the halls. Sometimes Chidi would glimpse small figures in his peripheral vision that vanished when he turned to look directly. "Mama, we're hungry," he heard Kosisachukwu's voice say during lunch. "Papa, push us on the swing," Kelechi called while Chidi worked in the garden. "Mama, Papa, why won't you play with us?" Both voices asked together, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Amara started answering them. "I'm coming, baby," she'd call out to empty rooms. "Mama's here." "Don't answer them," Chidi warned, though he wasn't sure why. Some instinct told him that acknowledging the voices was dangerous. "But there are children," Amara insisted. "They need us. They're calling for us." The photographs from the closet haunted Chidi's thoughts. 6 families, all with children. all showing the same progression from happiness to horror. He needed answers. The next morning, Chidi walked to Mama Ifeoma's compound. She was in her front yard, hanging laundry on a line, humming softly to herself. "Chidi," she greeted him warmly. "How are you settling in? Is the house everything you hoped?" "We found some things," Chidi said, pulling out several of the photographs. "Hidden in the closet upstairs. Pictures of other families who lived in the house." Mama Ifeoma's hands stilled on the wet cloth she was hanging. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Old tenants," she said dismissively. "People move on. That's what people do. 6 families, Mama Ifeoma, all couples with young children, all looking progressively more frightened in later photos." "I wouldn't know about that," she said, turning back to her laundry. "We've been hearing things, seeing things. Our children, but they're dead?" Mama Ifeoma's voice was suddenly cold. She turned to face him fully, and the warm maternal mask had slipped away completely. "Yes, I imagine you would see dead children. That house has a way of showing people what they've lost." The change in her demeanor was so abrupt that Chidi took a step back. "What do you mean?" Mama Ifeoma finished hanging her cloth and walked closer to him. "Tell me, Chidi, when your children died, were you there?" No. I was supposed to pick them up from school, but I forgot. They walked home alone and a car hit them." "Yes, I know. Do you know how I know?" Chidi's mouth went dry. "Because that's exactly the kind of pain it feeds on. Parental guilt. The deeper the better. Fathers who failed to protect. Mothers who couldn't save them. The house calls to people like you." "What are you talking about?" Mama Ifeoma smiled, but it was nothing like the warm expression she'd worn when they first met. "Every village has something that feeds, Chidi. Something old and hungry. In Umuagwo, it lives in that house at the edge of town." "You're talking nonsense." "Am I?" "Then explain the voices. Explain the children you've been seeing. Explain why 6 families before you have disappeared without a trace." The word disappeared hit Chidi like a physical blow. "The families in the photos didn't move away. They became part of the house, part of its endless hunger." "Why?" Chidi's voice was barely a whisper. "Why would you rent that house to us, knowing?" "Because 20 years ago, it took my daughter," Mama Ifeoma's voice cracked slightly, "right from my arms while she slept. But the village elders made a bargain. We feed it what it wants, grieving parents, couples who've lost children, and it leaves our living children alone." Chidi felt sick. "You're lying. Look around you, Chidi. Do you see any missing children in this village? Any families mourning lost babies? No, because we give it what it needs. Better strangers' pain than our own." "You're insane. I'm a mother protecting her remaining children." Mama Ifeoma snapped. "Do you think I enjoy this? Do you think I like watching families like yours walk into that house knowing what will happen? But would you rather it took children who are still breathing?" Chidi backed away from her, horror replacing shock. "We're leaving, today." Mama Ifeoma laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "You can try, but it's marked you now. It won't let you go." "Not until it's fed." Chidi ran back to the house, his heart pounding. He found Amara in the kitchen, calmly preparing lunch, as if nothing was wrong. "We have to leave," he gasped. "Now. Right now." "Leave?" Amara looked confused. "Why? We just got here. We're finally healing." "The woman who rented us this house, she knows what happens here. She's been feeding families to something. We're in danger." "Chidi, you're scaring me. What are you talking about?" Before he could answer, they heard Kalechi's voice from upstairs. "Papa, why are you shouting? Are you angry with us again?" Amara's face lit up. "The children are calling us." "Those aren't our children." Chidi grabbed her arm. "Whatever's in this house, it's using their voices to trap us." "Mama, come upstairs." Kosisuchukwu's voice drifted down. "We want to show you something." "Don't listen to them," Chidi pleaded. But Amara was already pulling away from him. "Our babies need us," she said, and there was something strange in her voice, something distant and dreamy. "They've been waiting so long." She started toward the stairs. Chidi caught her hand. "Amara, listen to me. Those are not our children. Our children are dead. We buried them." "No," Amara said, and her voice was becoming more distant. "They're here. They've been waiting for us. We just need to go to them." "Mama, Papa, please come up," both voices called together. "We have something wonderful to show you." Amara broke free from Chidi's grip and headed for the stairs. Chidi followed, fear making his legs weak. The upstairs hallway was dark, despite the afternoon. Sunday shadows seemed to move in the corners of his vision, and the air felt thick and oppressive. "In here, Mama and Papa," Kelechi's voice called from the master bedroom. Amara pushed open the door, and Chidi saw them, Kelechi and Kosasochukwu sitting on the bed just as real as life. They looked exactly as they had the day they died, down to the school uniforms they'd been wearing. "We've missed you so much," Kosasochukwu said, opening her arms. "Come give us a hug," Kelechi added. Amara was already moving toward them, tears of joy streaming down her face. "My babies, my precious babies." But something was wrong with the children's shadows. They fell in the wrong direction, and they seemed to move independently of the figures casting them. "Amara, don't," Chidi warned, but she was already embracing the children. The moment her arms closed around them, they began to change. Their skin grew pale and cold, their eyes turned black as stagnant water, and when they smiled, their teeth were too sharp. "Thank you for coming to us, Mama," they said in unison, their voices echoing strangely. "Now we can be together forever." Amara screamed and tried to pull away, but the things that looked like their children held her tight. Their small fingers had become like claws, digging into her arms. "Let her go." Chidi rushed forward, but the moment he touched one of the creatures, pain shot through his body like electricity. He was thrown back against the wall, his vision blurring. "Don't interfere, Papa," the thing wearing Kelechi's face said. "You've done enough damage already." "If you had picked us up from school like you were supposed to," the Kosasochukwu thing added, "we would still be alive. This is all your fault." The guilt hit Chidi like a physical weight, driving him to his knees. They were right. If he hadn't forgotten, if he had left work just 10 minutes earlier, if he had been a better father. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I'm so sorry. It should have been me instead of you." "Yes," both creatures said together. "It should have been." The room began to grow darker, shadows pooling in the corners and creeping across the walls. Amara's struggles were growing weaker, as the things that wore their children's faces drained something essential from her. "Join us willingly," they said, their voices becoming less and less like Kelechi and Kosasochukwu, and more like something ancient and hungry. "Your pain will end. Your guilt will end. You'll be with your children forever." For a moment, the offer was tempting. To stop feeling the crushing weight of responsibility for his children's deaths. To be free of the guilt that poisoned every breath he took. But then he looked at Amara, seeing the life draining from her face, and he remembered something the counselor had told them. Grief shared is grief doubled, but love shared is love multiplied. "No," he said, struggling to his feet. "I won't let you use our love against us." The creatures' faces twisted with rage. "You don't have a choice. We've already marked you. This house won't let you leave." "Maybe not," Chidi said, "but I won't make it easy for you." He grabbed Amara and pulled her away from the creatures with all his strength. This time, they released her, but only because they were laughing. "Run then," they said. "Try to escape. It will only make the feeding sweeter when you finally give in." Chidi half-carried, half-dragged Amara down the stairs and out of the house. She was barely conscious, mumbling about the children and how cold they were. Their car was in the driveway, but when Chidi turned the key, nothing happened. The engine wouldn't even turn over. "I told you it wouldn't let you leave." Mama Ifeoma's voice came from behind them. She was standing at the edge of the garden, no longer bothering to hide her true nature. It's been feeding on this land for centuries. Long before there was a village here, it was calling to parents who'd lost children, offering them reunion at the cost of their lives. Help us, Chidi pleaded. You have children of your own. You know what it's like to love them. Yes, I do, Mama Ifeoma said coldly. That's why I feed it strangers instead of my own family. Behind them, the house began to glow with an eerie light. Children's laughter echoed from within, but it wasn't the innocent sound of playing kids. It was something hungry and hollow. Last chance, the creatures called from the upstairs windows, still wearing Kelechi and Kosisa Chukwu's faces. Come back willingly, and we'll make it quick. Make us chase you, and we'll drag it out for days. Chidi looked at his wife, barely conscious in his arms, then at the car that wouldn't start, then at the roads that Mama Ifeoma claimed would only lead them back here. But he had to try. Carrying Amara, he started walking down the road away from the house. Behind them, the laughter grew louder and more twisted. They made it perhaps 100 meters before the road began to curve back on itself. No matter which direction Chidi walked, every path led back to the house with its glowing windows and hungry shadows. Mama, Papa, come home, the creatures called. We're waiting for you. And slowly, with no other choice, Chidi carried his wife back to the house where something ancient and evil was wearing their children's faces, waiting to feed on their love until nothing remained but empty shells and the echoes of laughter that would never sound quite right. As they reached the front door, Amara stirred in his arms and whispered, Kelechi, Kosisa Chukwu, Mama and Papa are here now. We'll never leave you again. The door opened by itself, welcoming them back into the darkness. 3 months later, Mama Ifeoma stood in the cemetery of the next town over, watching a young couple weep over a small grave. Their 6-year-old daughter had drowned in the local river just days before. I'm so sorry for your loss, she said, approaching them with the same warm, maternal smile she'd perfected over the years. I can't imagine your pain. The couple looked up with hollow, haunted eyes that she recognized all too well. You know, Mama Ifeoma continued gently, I might know somewhere very quiet where you could go to heal your hearts. A beautiful house where you could find some peace. As she led them away, making soft, comforting sounds, she quietly updated the small notebook in her purse. The last entry read, Chidi and Amara, twin loss, father's guilt, 6 months grief, excellent feeding, lasted 3 weeks. Below that, she was already writing, Emeka and Adara, single child drowning, fresh grief, arriving today. Back at the house, at the edge of Umuagwo village, faint children's laughter echoed from the upstairs windows. The sound was almost right, almost innocent, but not quite. The house was ready to feed again. The end. This tale teaches us that grief, no matter how deep, must never make us blind to danger. When we are broken by loss, we become vulnerable to those who would exploit our pain for their own dark purposes. True healing comes through facing our guilt and supporting each other, not by chasing impossible promises or running from our reality. Most importantly, we must remember that love shared in truth strengthens us, but love twisted by deception destroys us. Be wary of those who offer perfect solutions to imperfect pain, for they may be feeding something far hungrier than your sorrow. The house of Umuagwo still stands. It doesn't call with its walls or its doors. It calls with the voices of children you can't bear to ignore. And if you ever hear laughter at night that doesn't belong, pray you never follow it, because once you step inside, you don't walk out, you only echo. This tale serves as a warning to guard your heart against those who would use your deepest love as a weapon. In our darkest moments, we must choose our refuge wisely. For while genuine healing takes time and courage, false promises of peace may cost us everything we have left. May you find true peace in places where light dwells, not shadows. Sleep well, but remember, when voices call to you in the night, especially those of the ones you've lost, think carefully before you answer. If this story chilled your spine, Don't just leave quietly into the dark. Subscribe now, because the next tale waiting for you might be closer than you think. To end a woe, the tale is told to